in the thing. All right, let's just start it. Let's just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So I've got Heather here. Heather is in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. She works at Crone Clinic Pharmacy.
Black River Falls Clinic Pharmacy.
Black River Falls Clinic Pharmacy. And I got to know Heather. Our kids were playing together, and she dropped one of her kids off, and I said, hey, what do you do for $1? She said, I'm a pharmacist. I was like, no kidding. And she told me a little bit about what she does in adherence, and I thought that would be super interesting for people in Australia to hear about. We're going to go into talk to Heather about why she got into pharmacy, how she does her job, how it's measured, the successes that she's had, and anything that we might find useful for Australian pharmacy. But we'll start off with Heather. Can you start off with why you got into pharmacy?
Well, I guess I was looking into something in the health field, when I wanted to go to college. And because I liked biology, I liked science and all of that. And my teacher in high school, his daughter is a pharmacist, and that's actually who I work for right now.
All right.
Yeah, she owns the pharmacy. So he had suggested, hey, why don't you do pharmacy? This could be right up what you like to do. And so I decided, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. And so I went to River Falls. I did pre-pharmacy.
Yep.
And then I ended up going to UW-Madison for my pharmacy degree.
Yeah.
And there was a year or two there. I wasn't sure if that's what I really wanted to do. But then I worked at a pharmacy while I was going to school to kind of figure out, is that what I want to do? And I decided, yep.
That's smart.
Yeah. And I like people, so I wanted to, do something with people as well. So.
And so what did you figure out in that sort of little gap, the 2 years where you're like, eh?
Well, like I said, I decided one of my friends was going to pharmacy school.
Yeah.
And she said, well, hey, I'm going to pharmacy school next year. I will see if my boss will let you work, take over my position.
All right.
And so I ended up working at ShopGo at River Falls. And that way I could kind of delve into it and find out, is this something that I really like to do? And, it worked. It worked for me. I mean, like I said, I got to work with people and be part of their healthcare. And you make enough money too, which I liked as well.
Yeah.
And my dad was a veterinarian.
Okay.
And I thought about being a veterinarian. But he was on call all the time.
Right.
And just busy. I mean, he worked hard. And I thought, well, I'd like to do that, but I really don't want to be on call all the time.
Yeah.
And be away from my family. So I thought, well, I want to do pharmacy so I can make enough money so I can be comfortable, and that way I can still, hang out with my family, but still do what I like. So that's why I kind of ended up sticking with pharmacy versus doing something else.
Yeah, so you picked sort of lifestyle balance.
Yeah.
As well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good choice. So when you first started, what were some of the things that you kind of had to get used to? Because I hear a lot of pharmacists now, well, it depends on the location and the kind of pharmacy that they're in, really, but they don't get as much like helping people, the humanity side of it. And so did you sort of get to feel it in one of those jobs, or was it you always got a lot of attention with patients?
Actually, you're right when you say that. Like most of the pharmacy jobs, you're just so busy.
Yeah.
And you're just busy getting those prescriptions ready for those patients.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of one-on-one time with those patients that you would rather have. So when I was in college, I worked at ShopGo, and we were busy. And the pharmacist was really good there. Like, he tried to take the time to talk to the patients about their medications, but you couldn't delve into it like you really wanted to. I mean, if patients had a lot of problems, you really just didn't have the time to sit down with them one-on-one to do much.
Yeah.
When I got my first job out of college, I actually worked in a small hospital. And I really enjoyed that a lot, because when I started for pharmacy school, they decided to change it into a doctorate program. So they wanted you to do more clinical stuff with patients. So, you're looking at lab work and looking at that and deciding, well, what should we do with this medication, taking their blood pressure. They want you to get more involved with those patients.
Yeah.
And so it was fairly new. I mean, I graduated in 2013, and this is when this was just starting. So
Yeah.
this idea of patient care was fairly new when I was first getting into pharmacy school.
Right.
So you would think of the typical pharmacist, check prescriptions all day, count pills, and that's what a lot of them were doing.
Yeah.
But they wanted to change that. They wanted us to get more involved in the healthcare. So you go to the doctor, and then you go to the pharmacist, and we all work together to take care of the patient. Whereas before, it was kind of like that, but
Yeah.
they wanted it to be more and more, and let the doctors know, hey, pharmacists can do this stuff. They can help you with some of these issues, problems, questions that you have. And so they wanted us to get more clinical training so that we could be better apt to do that.
Right.
So
Does that have anything to do with the CPA, the collaborative practice agreements that you guys got passed in '95? Like the relationship between pharmacists and doctors, like there's a push worldwide for this. No matter what, like that's what the interesting thing to me is like it's like an organic thing, regardless of the regulations of the country. There's a big push to have pharmacists involved in the patient's life more. And in Australia, we're button heads with GPs. Well, the gods, the powers that be, are kind of butting heads, because doctors are like, no, you do your thing, and we'll work together, but stop, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's really very collaborative. It doesn't seem like there was much pushback at all. In the US, I've tried to look into like what kind of obstacles in '95 this collaborative practice agreement legislation came out. I haven't been able to find any. So you've been practicing for how long?
I graduated in 2003. I said that wrong. 2003.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay. Just
yeah.
lost a decade there. There's probably some children in there.
Trying to make myself look younger than I am. But yeah, 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still a battle even here.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just depends on who you're working with too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some physicians that they're like, I'm doing my thing, and when you get involved, I don't have time to deal with you trying to get involved with my patient. Most of them, because we do work in the clinic and collaborate, it's kind of always been that way, that we work well together.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. But it's still been a little battle, because like I said, we're talking about adherence, and we would get pharmacies, Medicare D, like Medicare, the D plans. They decided they were going to rate pharmacies on how well their patients were adherent to medications.
Yeah, let's get into that. That's why we've got Heather here, because she is your title an adherence pharmacist? Because that's an actual...
I'm just the pharmacist.
You're just the pharmacist, but you mostly work on that, on getting patients to adhere, which is awesome, because it's a massive worldwide problem. And so this is what I was really excited to hear from Heather because she's had some success in it. I learned a little bit about it in college, about the motivational interviewing techniques. But yeah, tell us about your day as doing adherence.
Yeah. So a few years ago is when this all really started.
Yeah.
So Medicare D decided they were going to grade us basically on how well we do. And so you have all these insurance plans, these Medicare D plans, that will give you a rating. Every 3 months you get rated on how well you do. And they picked 5 different categories to rate pharmacies on.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, if you weren't in the top 20% compared to all the pharmacies, around you, then they always take money back after every 3 months. They look and they'll take, let's say, 5% back.
Yeah.
Then, if you are in the top rating, if you got, you're in the top 20% of the pharmacies, so your patients were adherent and did everything, you wanted them to do, they would take less back.
Right.
So we would be essentially making more money from those insurance companies.
So the more adherent your patients are, the more money you make, which is really the best incentive you can have.
And so that was their way of trying to get their patients more adherent, and to get pharmacies to step in and help patients do that.
And how do they measure that accurately? Like I understand that you've got a number of, they come back for refills or whatever. But how confident are you that that is an accurate measurement of adherence?
Well, that's the problem. That's why we have to do this, and we have to document.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's a lot of patients, they'll pop up. There's different platforms that these insurance companies use. So I use Marixa and Outcomes. Those are the two biggest ones, and there's some other ones out there as well. But in our area, those are the two biggest ones, just because they're based off the insurance plan in this area. And so our name will pop up on that platform, and I look on it every day, and it'll show up saying this patient, refilled their medication late. And then it's my job to call them and talk to them about that and find out why it was refilled late.
Okay.
So I call them up, tell them who I am, what's going on. And a lot of times it's because their dose got changed by their doctor.
Oh.
Well, I'm only supposed to take a half a tablet now, not a full tablet. Or they were in the hospital for a while.
Right.
I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, so yeah, I filled it late.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different reasons why, and you just have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because they forget to take it.
Yeah. I would imagine
Sometimes
that's
it's a side effect, and they're like, well, I don't like how it makes me feel.
right.
And that's where if we can figure out why, then I take the next step and we figure out how do we fix that
Yeah. Okay.
issue.
That's really good.
Yeah. So it just depends on if it's a side effect, I might be able to just say, hey, take it with food and see if that helps. Or change the time of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can just maybe recommend, hey, we might need to decrease the dose a little bit. Or maybe we could try a different medication if this one's not working for you.
Right.
But you want to make sure they know why they're taking it and why it's important to keep taking it. And the type of medications that they're measuring are those types of medications. So it's mostly diabetes patients.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure they're taking their diabetes medications. So they rate us on that. If you're a diabetes patient, you should be on a statin as well for cholesterol.
Yeah.
If you meet certain criteria. So that's another thing they judge us on. Are they on a statin? If they're on a statin, are they adherent to the statin?
Yeah.
If you're diabetic, if you're on an ACE inhibitor, which helps protect the kidneys and helps with blood pressure as well. And the last one is high-risk medications that put you at risk for falling.
Okay.
So those are the 5 main ones we get rated on.
Yeah.
And so they're important meds to be on or to make sure you're adherent to. And so I think the most important thing when I talk to patients is you have to know why you're taking a medication.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if you don't understand why, you're not going to want to take it. If you don't think it's important and understand why it's important, you're not going to take it.
So do you sit down with them with like an initial consult and explain to them how it's going to work? Do you have diagrams? Do you draw pictures? Because to me, a guy who's not a pharmacist, I can sit there and read research articles all day about what's going on, but it's still even after 5 years of researching things, it's pretty complex stuff. Especially when you go down to the chemistry level, which I suck at. I'm just terrible at it. So, do you have
Well, you
pictures?
don't want to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
You want to make it just so it's a reality to them.
Yeah.
Why, if I don't take my statin, what could happen? How is a statin working in my body? But you don't want to make it overcomplicated because their eyes will glaze over.
That's
and they're
right.
I don't know. So you have to make sure it's in their terms that they can understand.
And that's just different for everybody?
It's different for everybody.
Right.
And some people, they know why it's important.
Yeah.
But it's that motivation to take it every day. Is it real? Do I really have to take it every day?
Yeah.
Is it going to work a little bit if I just take it once in a while?
Yeah,
or do I
yeah.
have to take it every day? Sometimes it's just a little bit of that.
Right.
And sometimes it's just, I forget to take my evening meds. My morning meds are great, but not my evening. And they told me to take it in the evening. Well, then I can talk to them about that. And I could be like, statins are better in the evening, but if you're forgetting to take it, it's not going to work.
Right.
So I'd rather have you take it in the morning if you can remember. It's still going to work, because you're going to be taking it every day now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather have you do that.
So there's an incentive for you guys, the clinic, the pharmacy, and to help them be adherent? Besides, like, keeping their heart working, is there any incentive to the patients to be more adherent? Besides getting yelled at by Heather?
Yeah, besides getting yelled at by me. There really isn't,
No.
as far as I know.
Mm.
There are, like, I'm actually doing a pilot study right now
Yeah.
with this insurance company, and it's really neat because this insurance company is the one that started it. They wanted to find out if getting pharmacists involved in patient care can help their outcomes. So they did a small one a year ago, and they wanted to do another one. So I ended up getting 4 patients.
Mm.
Either they had diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol, and they had this particular insurance. And I had to meet with them 4 times. So
Yeah.
the first time in person, and then I'll be doing 2 phone calls, and then the 4th time in person. And they did give the patients an incentive.
Okay.
So they're getting a $50 Quick Trip card
Okay.
and a brand new blood pressure monitor.
Oh, cool.
And this is like a $100 blood pressure monitor, really super nice.
Yeah.
And so that was very smart of them,
Yeah.
I think, to get these patients, give them a reason to come in and talk to the pharmacist and find out if it can make a difference.
Aren't we interesting, funny creatures where it's like, hey, look, if you take this statin, you might not die, but that's not good enough incentive.
No, that's not good enough incentive. Exactly.
I need a heart monitor and $50 at Quick Trip. But hey, if it works, who cares? You
Yeah.
know? Mm.
So we've had some really good luck. And you sit down and you talk to them about their medications they're taking, their lifestyle choices, diet, exercise, all of that.
Yeah.
And they get that one-on-one time with the pharmacist, whereas at the doctor's office, they might not have enough time to do all of that.
Right.
Plus, I'm meeting with them 4 times. So, once a month, I'm checking in. How are things going? If I need to talk to their doctor, I can talk to their doctor, which we've already had to do for 1 patient.
Yeah.
And it's really been neat because I've had 2 patients now. One, he thought his blood pressure was fine. And we checked it at the office, and it was really high.
Right.
And he's like, it's never been this high. So then he thought it was because of he had started an herbal medication.
Okay.
And he thought, well, maybe that was increasing it. And so he stopped that, and it didn't make a difference. And he was getting really worried about it. So he called his doctor, and they increased his dose, and now his blood pressure is down again.
Okay.
So if we wouldn't have had that meeting, it would have been 6 more months that he would have waited to see his doctor before he realized his blood pressure was creeping up higher and higher.
Right.
And this other lady, I just met with her this morning, and so she's been checking her blood pressure every day, twice a day.
Yeah.
And she's a long family history of high blood pressure and strokes. And so she's really always been trying to stay on top of her health. But she's like, yeah, I've noticed I haven't been exercising as much or eating as good.
Mm.
And we checked her blood pressure, and it was normal for her, higher than other people. But so she's been checking it for a month now, and she said she was so excited to tell me her results. She said, this is so cool. So my husband was gone for 2 weeks, and my blood pressure went down. And so she just laughed about that. And then she said, but I went out to eat a couple of those nights, and I did fast food 2 nights in a row.
Mm.
And she's like, my blood pressure went way up.
Right.
And so she's like, I'm assuming it was from the sodium or whatever. But if I wasn't checking my blood pressure every day, I wouldn't have noticed that, hey, these things actually affect, my blood pressure.
Yeah.
And when she started exercising more, she noticed too that it came down after she started exercising more as well. So she's going to keep checking it every day, she said, for the next month. And then I'm going to call her in a month again and see how it goes. But I think her having that blood pressure monitor at home available to see how does me making these changes
Right.
affect my blood pressure. And she was able to correlate that because she had the means now. She had that blood pressure to see that.
But it's not just the blood pressure tester that she gets sent home from the insurance company. It's the liaising with you, right? Like
exactly.
She has direct access to you.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
That's good.
But
she didn't have that with her doctor.
Well, I mean, they do.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times you don't have to go in for 6 months or a year.
Right.
Whereas with pharmacy, you have to come fill your prescription a lot of insurance plans let you do every 90 days.
Yeah.
So it's either 30 days or 90 days.
Okay.
So that's why the insurance company is like, well, you see the pharmacist more often than your doctor.
Okay.
So if we can get them involved, you see them more anyways, and you have more time to talk to them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the studies that I looked at when I am sort of researching these collaborative practice agreements, that was the same sort of studies that this insurance company is running now, but it was, well, over 20 years ago. And they've, these have been replicated all over the place. Well, that's the good news. Those are the fun things. What about the times when Heather's got to sort of smack somebody over the knuckles with a ruler? How do you deal with the patients? I mean, it's got to be different for everybody, but
yeah.
How do you deal with the patients that you know the adherence is poor?
Well, that can get tricky.
Yeah.
Just because there's could be so many different reasons why the adherence is poor.
Yeah.
And there's actually a new tool that I got from doing this pilot study. It's through WPQC, which is in Wisconsin, Wisconsin Pharmacy Quality, WPQC Care or something like that. I don't know. It's a long one.
It's okay.
But
sounds like it's a poorly constructed acronym if you don't know what it means.
I know. I'm like, why can't I'm blanking out on what the
acronyms should be 4 long. Like that's as long as they should be allowed to be. 4. That's it.
I can't remember it, but it's part of the state, and they are working together with this insurance company. But they have resources on their website that pharmacists can go and use to help, and they have this new adherence one.
Right.
And it's really neat because it has all these different questions you ask the patients, and based off their answer, you can go be like, okay, so this is the reason why they're non-adherent. If it's money, okay, so what are some things we can look at? If it's money, what we can do?
Right.
Are there programs we can refer them to?
Okay.
Can we change them to a generic medication, which is less expensive? Different things like that. Another one would be transportation. Like they can't make it into the pharmacy or to the doctor's appointments. What can you do?
Right.
And then it says, here's some different things that you can help them with.
Yeah.
If they're not remembering to take it, here's some ideas of what you could suggest for that.
That one there, the remembering thing, I'd imagine would be the biggest one.
That's the biggest.
Because we're talking about habits.
It's the biggest one.
Yeah. And that's like that's the multi-billion-dollar question. I mean, like with my company, we train people to do things, but it's the habit that's the hard part. And so we try and sort of leverage that. But I mean, the hard part for you, I imagine, is the same thing that's hard for the doctor. Like, okay, well, what we need to do is we probably need to lose 50 pounds. So how about we reduce there's no massive mystery to reducing the amount of calories that you consume and increasing the amount of calories that you exert. Like, it's not a difficult subtraction. But you're the person that sort of sits there and says, well, you might be able to reduce your reflux if you stopped eating crap. But let's give you a PPI to help with that anyway. So
yes.
So you're kind of stuck in a really difficult position about what you know needs to happen, what you need to be able to get, and what you're able to get people to do.
Yeah.
So I've read about and I learned about sort of motivational interviewing, and we sort of alluded to this in our conversation at my house.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of interview techniques like that you kind of follow when it comes to people just forgetting?
Motivational interviewing is great. Open-ended questions, that's kind of part of the motivational interviewing as well.
Right.
It's basically you're just finding out what motivates them, and then you take that and figure out what you need to do.
Right.
I don't have anything specific. What I try to do is think of everybody as my grandma.
Okay.
And if I do that, I feel like then I take a step back and I care more about them.
Yeah.
And try to find out, I listen, what's what's the issue? What's the problem? Versus me like jumping right in and saying, hey, well, this medication is for this, and these studies show that this helps with this, so you should be taking this. You don't want to boss them around and tell them what to do. If you listen to what they're telling you, then you can like figure out, well, what do we really need to do here?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part, is just stopping and listening and caring about their health. And what would you tell your grandma?
Right.
What would you tell her?
Depends. My wife would probably be
Well,
cranky at it. Like, what are you doing? You're going to kill yourself. Stop it.
Some grandmas, yeah, you have to yell at them. Like, my mom would have to yell at, like, Mom, seriously.
Yeah.
But, like that nice quiet little grandma.
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
like, it's so sweet. And you just want to help her.
What's going on?
You know? And I think makes it easier for me if I think of them that way.
So I think it probably helped with adherence too, if somebody cared about you, or at least they got the feeling that, I'm going to let Heather down. She really cares. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's part of it.
Yeah, I believe it.
The other thing that we do at our pharmacy, and this is all part of the Medicare ratings as well, is medication reviews, comprehensive medication reviews.
Yeah.
And that's part of the ratings too now. That just happened this last year. And so you have to sit down with a patient one-on-one and go through their medications, to do a medication review with them.
Yep.
And the plan will pay you to do that. The insurance plan pays the pharmacist.
Yeah. We've got a similar thing as Strickland. Yeah, meds checks. Yeah.
It's free for the patient
to
do. But by doing that, you're sitting down. You can do it over the phone, or you can do it in person. And I like to have them come in and do it in person.
Yeah.
But you just go through their medication list. You can, if you have time, you go through health style stuff as well. I mean, you just get involved. And I think that every time I do that with a patient, something good comes out of it.
Right.
You get to know that person.
Yeah.
They get to know you.
Yeah.
And I've had so many of them like, well, she's my personal pharmacist. I want to talk to Heather. I think, they knew I talked to them one-on-one about their meds. So she knows what's going on with me. I want to talk to her.
So I'm guessing there's like a criteria that you've got to, like they've got to have a minimum of 5 meds or something.
Yep. They usually have to, it's 4 medications or more. And that one, usually it's 2 chronic conditions.
Yeah. Most
of them do, if they're on Medicare D. A lot of patients have that.
So any success with adherence, since it's sort of a crossover, any success with adherence with those interactions?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I always tell these patients, when I go through their medication list, I say, I try to take away medications if I can.
Right.
People think pharmacists, they're drug pushers, you should take this, you should take I said, no, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I said, I want to go through your list and find something I could take away.
Yeah, pharmacists are terrible at PR. You guys are too modest and nice, and people call you mean names, and it really bugs me. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so we just go through all, each medication, and I try to figure out ways, like I ask, well, when are you taking this medication? What are you taking it for? And if they don't know what they're taking it for, I try to explain to them why. And we always come up with a question or a concern or something that we can do after we do one of those. And it just builds that relationship too with these patients. And so they start to trust you. And when you say, hey, you really need to take this medication, and I think this one's really important, then they believe you.
Yeah.
Versus, them just, oh, yeah.
Waving your finger at them.
So,
you said some open-ended questions. Take me through it. What would be, you sat me down, you're doing it's not a meds check. What is it called?
Medication review.
Medication review. I've got 4 or more meds. What sort of open-ended questions are you going to start with to kind of learn more about me?
I don't know. I guess we always just go through their med list, and just start from there. So I'll just be like, oh,
do the grandma thing. Like I'm your grandma, right?
Okay.
and you're like, oh, Tyson's not taking his statin, and so how do you start?
So Tyson's not Grandpa Tyson's not taking his statin, and let's say you just are forgetting to take it.
Right.
That's the adherence part of it, and basically I just say, well, why are you forgetting to take this medication?
Oh, you know, just busy. Start the day, and we've got a lot of things to do, and there's lawn bowls to attend to, and uh,
And then I'll say, well, what time of the day do you normally take this?
when I remember, like 6:30
6:30 at night?
in the morning.
In the morning?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, are your mornings really busy for you then?
Oh, I like to read the paper, and yeah, I guess no, not really.
Not really?
Mm.
Okay. Well, is there a better time of the day that you think you would remember to take that medication if I said it was okay to take it in the evening, like at bedtime, like when you brush your teeth, to kind of remind you, brush my teeth, take my medicine?
Okay, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah?
Yep. So you try and tie it to another behavior.
Yeah.
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 Brushing your teeth's a good one.
Yeah, and some people like, mornings are bad for them. They're like, I'm in a hurry, rush. I forget to take it, and then I'm out of the house, and it's too late. And so I'm just like, hey, well, you can take that medication in the evening.
Yeah.
Maybe are you always home for supper? Maybe that's a good time to take it then.
Okay.
And sometimes they just were told to take it in the morning, and they think they have to take it in the morning.
Right, and if they don't
And
do
you
it,
don't.
they forget, so they don't do it at all.
I had one patient. He takes a diabetes medication, and it's twice a day. And I found out from him that he's like, well, do you want and the same thing, like, I don't always take it, he said. I'm not the greatest. And I'm like, well, which one don't you remember to take? And he's like, well, the one in the evening.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why not? Oh, no, it was the morning one.
Morning one.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just forget in the morning. And I said, well, they make this medication in a extended release form, which means you can take it once a day instead of twice a day. So I just have to talk to your doctor and switch it to that instead. Okay. So if you can remember to take it once a day versus twice a day, let's just switch you over to that instead.
Yeah.
And that's what we ended up doing.
So it sounds like you, during the open-ended questions, but you're also not making the decision for them. You kind of come at it like very gently, like you were convincing your husband to do something without having to. Well, when you're married to someone forever, you can't tell them what to do because they tell you where to stick it. Right? You got to kind of gently make them think it's their idea, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're asking them a question, and then you're sort of suggesting, and okay, yep, and then they're the boss, and I think that really helps with engagement in anything. If you're getting a staff member to do something, you kind of got to get it in their head that it's their idea. Get some sort of creativity involved, that it's their decision and they're in charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to boss anybody around.
No. Well, I mean, if it worked, I wouldn't care. Like, if it worked, I would boss people around, but sometimes people need that. I'm sure sometimes you're like wagging your finger at people like you do with your mom.
Yeah. I don't yell at too many people. I get concerned. I just say, this really concerns me. Like, this medication is really important to take, and this is why, if they're not getting it, I'm like, I really think this is when you should focus on this time.
Yeah.
And try to just emphasize that I'm not joking around. Like, this is something you need to be taking every day. And hopefully they get that from my voice.
So you're almost confrontational, but not in the you're showing them, you're coming to them from a position of caring, but they're also a little bit put on notice.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like you do with your mum. Like, hey, I love you, but you got to do this, or you're gonna, whatever. Or with the kid, hey, I love you, but if you keep doing that, I'm going to take away your PlayStation.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's put on notice, but supported emotionally, right? Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so let's finish up. You've got to go back to work. What are give me 3 open-ended questions that you might start out with. Take your time. Like, you're looking at my medications.
I just ask them about their medication. How do you take your medication?
How do I take it? And
what do you take your medication for?
Okay. And you know why, but you want to know how they understand.
I want them I want to know if they understand.
Right.
Why they're taking their medication, what it's for, and how they're taking it.
Yeah.
And so those are the 3. But, and that's kind of what you go with when you get a new medication for a patient too. You want to do open-ended questions.
Yeah.
Because if they already know what all this information. I don't need to spew it out at them.
Yeah, it's not a end of semester exam.
So you want to know, well, why did the doctor start you on this medication? And then they'll tell you. Okay, well, how did he tell you to take it? Okay, told you to take it in the morning. Okay, yep, but you should probably take it with some food too, or something like that.
Right.
And then how long are you, supposed to be on this medication? Just different things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Or if it's about adherence, like I said, how are you taking this at home? How could you do it different? Is there any ideas that would make it easier for you to remember to take this medication? Things like that.
You're really naturally giving them the ownership and the creativity over their decision. I don't know if you're doing that on purpose or you just sort of felt it out, sort of.
I think I've been doing it for a while
now. Yeah.
That's what's neat about working at the pharmacy. When I started a few years ago,
yeah,
Barb really wanted me to focus on doing just what I'm doing. She's like, I need a pharmacist. We're getting graded on this now, and it's going to affect how much we get paid. And I need someone to focus on that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're the right person for the job.
She's let me take that over and has given me the time to do that. And not a lot of pharmacies have that advantage to do that, because a lot of independent pharmacies can only get by with 2 pharmacists or one, even one pharmacist. Well, they don't have time to check everyone's prescriptions and do all that and then sit down with a patient one-on-one for an hour either. But she knew how important it was, for her pharmacy to do this. So she let me take it over and do it. And so I've definitely been blessed to be able to do that. And it's what I like to do, because I love talking to the patients and getting to know them versus just sitting there and waiting on them and checking their prescriptions all the time. And
how do you think, how long have you been doing this adherence stuff?
Adherence?
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, how do you think it's changed you as a person? How do you think from the start, if you imagine you go back to the beginning of, you sat down with your boss and hey, we need you to do this, and the kind of pharmacist you were then to the kind of pharmacist you are now?
Oh man, yeah. I've learned a lot through the years, and I wouldn't want to do it any other way now. When I don't get a chance to do that, if I have, she's on vacation, and so now I haven't had time to do that, and I'm just I miss it. Because I would rather be talking to those patients and doing this type of stuff than sitting there and just checking everything throughout the day. And so this is what I need to do for people. And so I think it's, and you're always learning something new and trying different things to help patients. So using those new forms now that I got, that resource, I'm oh, this is cool. I might try to use this more. And just if a patient is non-adherent, have them fill out this quick, they have a little quick survey that you can fill out, or there's a little bit longer one if you have more time, and then using those questions to help them with their adherence issues. And so I'm going to start using that now too, because I think that was great how they came up with those questions.
Yeah, you'll have to show that to me. I think that'd be really interesting if I can have access to it.
Oh, yeah. I could. I don't know if you have fax or what, but I could.
Fax?
I could fax it over to you.
Bloody pharmacies and your technology. All right, so not to keep you away on a busy Monday, Heather, thank you so much. I've learned a lot. I've been really interesting information. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.